Next topic I want to talk about is a very exciting one. We already talked about it a little bit over in Europe. It's 5 versus 5. It's coming soon. You can get on in for the early access. You can sign up already, 5v5.vainglorygame.com. But I want to talk a little bit about the map. I want to talk a little bit about how the game is going to be changing, because right now in 3v3, there are 10 turrets on the map, including both teams. When we go into 5v5, there are going to be 18 turrets on the map. That is a huge increase.
It's a massive increase in the number of objectives, the standing gold, as we like to call it. And then in the base, there's also these 3 inhibitor-like structures. So that makes 24 structures, 26 if you count the vein crystals as well, that you can work to destroy and permanently destroy in the game, most likely. We'll see if, maybe these inhibitors act like structures in other games where they end up respawning. We don't know. We don't have all of the details yet. SCMC is unfortunately keeping things very close to the vest on us. Even us casters and analysts don't get the privileged information that we would love to be able to get.
Right, and that makes it so exciting because that means there's so much more gold on the map to be gained just from those structures. You have to work through each and every lane to get to the vein crystal, and not doesn't get you to the vein crystal itself. It gives you that gold every time you take down a structure. So in general, the map has a lot more to it and a lot more to be gained.
Absolutely, and with a bigger map, Fog of War becomes a much more important topic of conversation. There is so much more of the map that is going to be in shadow, that you have to set up vision around, that you have to figure out how you're going to kind of manage the extra space and keep a track on top of your enemies.
Yeah, the vision is going to be absolutely crucial coming into the 5v5 update. There's so many different areas where you can approach from. Whether you're ganking from the jungle and looking to get into the lanes, whether you're rotating as a team towards certain objectives, the vision that is available, there's so many more spots where you can set up ambushes if your opponent doesn't have this solid vision control. So it's going to be really important. We may even start seeing, carries and the like starting to buy vision for especially the early game.
Indeed. I mean, the information that you're going to be gaining from having vision all over the map is going to be so important. It's already important enough in 3v3. 5v5 is going to be multiplied. Besides that, the place of the mine placements that we're going to be seeing from pro players, that's what I'm interested in, because as the map gets bigger, there's more and more areas where you can place those mines and have them sit there for the entire game, if those mines will be continuing in 5v5.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't even know what kind of vision system is going to be in place. There's so much speculation that you can do, and one of the things I want to speculate about right now is split pushing. It's something that is prevalent in every other MOBA right now, but it's because there's only one lane in 3v3. We've never seen it in Vainglory. But once we get into 5v5, extra lanes enter the fray, and that means that split pushing is going to become a very real thing.
Yeah, and this is one of the things I'm personally most excited about for 5v5 and the new 3-lane system, is the fact that split pushing becomes an option. It's one of my favorite things to do in other MOBAs. You play this one bruiser that can 1v1 just about anyone on the opposing team. They then have to send one or more people towards you to stop you from pushing in. Your team sets up pushes with the minions, just the natural wave management in all the other lanes. In that graphic that we just saw, you have your split pusher go down the blue lane, the orange lane, you have the rest of your team group up and put pressure. Now you leave your opponents with a decision to make, and almost all of those decisions result in them losing a turn.
Right. I mean, honestly, it's very, very exciting, because lane minions wave management right now in 3v3 is important, but it's not important enough. In 5v5 is going to completely change, because there are 3 lanes, 3 minion waves that you can control at a time, and setting those up and preparing them before you go for an objective, before you go for a team fight, can give you the advantage on the other side of the map while you're fighting. And the split pushing is just one strategy out of many that you're going to have. Another thing is objective trading. When one team goes for one objective, you no longer have to contest it like the gold mine you usually have to contest it. Now you can choose to go for another objective on the other side of the map and choosing to trade. Perhaps if you're behind, you want to get some gold for yourself. So many different options that will be available in 5v5.
And you talk about objectives on the other side of the map. The map's going to be so much larger just on 5v5 too, so mobility now becomes an incredibly important factor. Whether it's to be able to go and clear out a wave that has been slow pushing towards your turrets for a while, or if it's just to make ganks throughout the early to mid game, the mobility is key. We actually even have a video to kind of demonstrate some of the things you can do with high mobility, the different areas that you can gank from. You can come from multiple different angles, especially in the mid lane, and it's something that we haven't been able to see yet on the 3v3 map.
Right, and that's when heroes such as Finn will have a much harder time. Heroes such as Glaive, on the other hand, that have the afterburn, can utilize that for mobility, for ganking. There's so many different paths that we talked about that you can gank from. And then for heroes such as Finn, in 3v3, they do have a weakness, but you can't abuse it enough. In 5v5 is going to be a different case also, because if you choose to go somewhere else away from the Finn, it's going to take him such a long time. Imagine you're in the bottom lane doing something with Finn, and then the other team decides to group and push a turret on the top lane. It's going to take you such a long time to get all the way to the other side of the map. So heroes that don't have mobility, and mobility in general, is going to be so much more important.
It's all about decision making.
Decision making. Those decisions that everybody is going to have to be making in 5v5 is about these objectives. Now, I beg production to let me do a Telestrator segment on this, because it's going to be so important to focus on these neutral objectives. Now, let me show you on the map here. We have two major neutral objectives. This is very similar to other MOBAs where we have these pits. We don't know what's going to be in the pits just yet. Could be Kraken, could be Goldmine, could be something else. There was a dragon in the splash art, so I'm excited to see what comes out with that. But focusing on these objectives is going to be incredibly important, and it's going to be interesting to see how different teams focus on different objectives. And we've already talked about split pushing. When we see teams trying to focus on this objective, setting up with their vision around there, trying to get control of that area, if you see this team start to split push down here, teams are going to have to make a decision. Do they commit to this objective? Do they send someone to meet the other split pusher? How do you deal with those situations? That goes back to the conversation of mobility. How can you deal with those situations? Can you send just two people here to stall? We're going to wait and see once the pros get their hands on this map to see how all of that kind of thing is going to pan out. Another really important conversation is lines of control. You see your first three turrets. This is like a line of defense across the map. It means that your jungle is protected. You can retreat from jungle fights to those turrets. But once those first three turrets are eliminated, if you lose all of your tier 1s before you can take your opponents, your line of control falls back to your next turrets, which is so significantly far back. Pushing from this turret to the objective is such an investment, and if you don't have vision, can be incredibly dangerous. So controlling the early game, controlling your tier 1 turrets, and making sure that you have vision of these objectives is going to become more and more important the higher elo the games are. And when we see the pros get onto these maps, I cannot wait to see how that kind of thing is going to happen. Also, just there's so many things that 5v5 offers, and the fact that there are 3 lanes offers, like with jungle placement, for example. Even if we may end up having 2 junglers per team, we don't know just yet. But if it's just one jungler, someone shows on the top side of the map, you get vision of that. You see their jungler. Your jungler then can push elsewhere. They can take control of the rest of the map. So there is so much. Like, I could talk with this map about 5v5 for the rest of the show. I'm not going to take any more time. We've got to get on into the Vainglory8. So I'm going to pass it over to the fight of the week from last week's game.